For the next session we have, just wanted to introduce a couple of all of the panelists here. Some of you maybe have met Paul Devlin before. Paul is the COO of Causeway Technologies. When we met Paul, he was a manager working in Dubai with a team of 7 individuals, and Paul shared his story about how he had to turn around the performance of those 7 individuals. And I also remember Paul, because he was on the first module of the Masters, he said, am I doing here? Yeah, that was true. Yeah? Anyway, since then, he turned around this team. He ended up in very, very senior positions in SAP, and Aruba, managing hundreds of salespeople, if not thousands. And he then left to join a company called SUSE, and with SUSE took the sales team to the largest, is that one of the largest IPO deals that were done? The largest tech IPO in 2021, after which he said he didn't have to work anymore. Yeah, he said he's going to retire. Yeah. And he's since been working, is it with Rothschild as the private equity house, who's then put him into a new company called Causeway, and he's going to do the same again. I think this is what rumour has it. So we have Paul, and Paul is on the panel, if you like, representing the COO kind of role, perhaps CEO role as well. Then we have Vlatka Hlupic. We've already heard so much about Vlatka. It's interesting because I was looking up your name, Vlatka, thinking, where does that name come from? Do you know what you would know what it comes from, presumably. Yeah, but it actually means control. Yeah?
Leadership.
It does. Is it to lead? Okay. It was quite interesting because, you know, you're about emergent leadership. And I was thinking, that's actually not what you're about at all. But anyway, that was interesting. So Vlatka Hlupic is very well known to our students because her book, The Emergent Leadership, is on the reading list in, I think it's Module 4. Is that right? Yeah. In Module 4. So we've talked about you for so long. First time we've met you is actually here. Clearly emergent leadership and being future ready is very well connected. I don't know if I need to introduce Grant to you. Do I? Does anyone not know Grant by any chance? Grant was this just boy from Kansas. He was sitting there on Module 1 saying, oh, what am I doing here? What has been extraordinary about Grant is he heads up the sales transformation business at Royal Caribbean, from an enablement perspective. Since he's done the Masters, he's gone on and done a doctorate. And he's also written a book and is about to have another book. He's had 1 million plus viewers on TEDx. Yeah, it's just incredible. So I'm going to go back to Paul. Paul, you are surrounded by a professor, yeah, and an author, and a doctor, and an author.
He's only doing this because he's been trying to get...
I've been trying to get you. Anyway, so I think we've got 3 interesting speakers. So for this next session, what we want to do is invite you to also quiz the panelists about how they see future ready, the kind of challenges that they have. And I'll lead some of the questions, but I'm hoping that you will engage with this next part of the organisation. So, conference. So could I invite the panel speakers to come up and take a seat, if we can give them a round of applause. Thank you. Okay, so shall we kind of get started? So I'd like to, maybe sort of in terms of an order, I'm going to direct perhaps a few questions to Paul to begin with, and then perhaps to Grant after that, and then Vlatka after that, if that's okay. So, question is future ready, yeah, and maybe you've picked up some thoughts and themes from the event that we've just heard, but what does this mean to you, Paul, as a kind of strategic leader of a business, what are the kind of challenges you think you're kind of facing in the organisation? Maybe some of the blocks to success that you may have on that. Just share your thoughts about what does future ready mean for Causeway.
Sure, cool. Well, look, I hope in alignment with most people in this room, at the end of the day, I'm just a sales guy. The difference is I've been doing it for 30 years. And I had the absolute pleasure of being able to do a master's 10 years ago, which we were the first ever cohort to go do this, and it, absolutely changed my life in terms of the way in which I started to think about business and academia and how you bring those things together. So I was literally before then typical sales guy or a sales leader, my life driven 90 days at a time. Driving my wife insane by the fact that, for the last 3 weeks of a quarter, I was just a living robot, basically. So I think that, what I've learned about Future Ready and what I'm trying to do in the company that I'm in now, and it's funny, the things that offer put up are an absolute parallel to how I've lived the last 9 months of my life, building a market model for this company, getting it to understand its ICP, getting it to understand its personas, the people that we actually do business with, so that we can build towards that in the future. So I think the first thing is about understanding customer and understanding the markets that you serve, and how do you take that knowledge down into your sales team. The second part for us about being future ready is all around building out a CRM system, which we use Salesforce, and I've just put in Clary. And the reason that I put in Clary was it was all around AI generated forecasting. And why did I want to do that? Well, for any sales leaders in the audience that have spent their life forecasting, you realize how challenging that is. When you run a sales team, right? It's a bit like herding cats. So what AI is phenomenal at is taking everything that's ever happened in your history, and based on that, creating what it believes a forecast will look like based on what's happening in your system today. And the reason why that I want to do that is the thing that's never ever left me is that, we live in a world that at the end of the day is generated through people. And in the world of selling, there's about 20% of salespeople in the world that you would class as A players. There's about 60 to 70% of people in selling that you would probably class as average. And then you've got that 10, 20% that's there. Well, my mission as a leader, and I feel our mission as sales leaders, is you're nothing more than an imperfect person leading imperfect people. But we exist to turn people into leaders, right? We exist to enable people to be more successful. Yeah? And if that is not what you're doing as a sales leader, I think that means it becomes unbelievably challenging, right? So for me, anything that I can do that brings insight to the field and enables them to be more successful is what I'm going to try and do, because they have hopes and dreams and aspirations in the same way the customers have hopes and dreams and aspirations. So that's the second piece, is about trying to find unfair advantage that I can bring to the field to enable them to be more successful. But there's big demands that come with that. There's a quid pro quo, because if we're going to go and do that, then they have to commit to learning. Yeah, so in Causeway, and in part in the other companies that I've run, I don't really have any time for people who don't want to learn. So when it becomes to hiring, a key enabler of mine, one of the first questions I asked is, tell me something that you've learned to do in the past 2 years that you haven't never done before. And if people can't give me an answer to that question, you cannot come in. Yeah, and I've probably lost loads of good people over that, but I think I've probably gained many, many more. And this is about growth mindset. And why is that important? Because you live in a world of change. Yeah, everything around us is changing. You just look at the presentations that we've had today on AI and ethics and the world and what is happening in the world, the speed of change, and what's happening in change that Kathy talked about, and I know that Vlatka will talk about. If you asked Grant to tell you about his life in the last 3 years and the whirlwind of change that was, and what he's done since then, right? So the world is changing really, really quickly. We don't have time. So a growth mindset and people that you're bringing in, coupled with emotional intelligence, are two of the things that are amazing. So trying to be future ready is asking ourselves about, I want those people in my organisation. I don't have the time to explain. I want people who want to come in and are prepared to challenge themselves and challenge our customers and challenge our markets. So that I can give them that unfair advantage that then means that as a company, no matter what the future throws at us, our resilience, our ability to think our way through those challenges is exponentially increased. And, you know, if I put it to maybe people in the audience, you know, having done this for a long time, I left school at 16. I didn't go to university until I was 43, and I had the absolute fortune of meeting Phil, and I had the absolute fortune of being taught by, you know, some of the people that are in this room. And, you know, that inspired me to understand if you want to be future ready, you never, ever stop learning. And if you haven't picked up a book in 12 months, I would say to you, go pick up a book. If you don't have a practice yet of reflecting, and I mean every day sitting back and going, what happened? Did it go the way that I thought that it would? What did I learn from today? And, you know, what am I going to think about? And what is amazing about that, when you start to do it and you start to write things down, the difference in the quality of your thinking is just huge. So for me, future ready, never ever stop learning, you know, never stop reading. And I promise you, I'm not somebody that reads 100 books a year, but I am somebody that takes an hour every single day, and I'll go onto LinkedIn because I want to know what Grant's doing and I want to know what John's doing. You know, I want to figure out what's happening in the world and how can I learn and how do I get my, you know, my teams and my people to learn. Reflection and building that period of reflection in on an individual level is absolutely huge, and we'll always make sure that, you know, that you are future ready, and if you're a leader, we'll continue to make sure that you're future ready. So Phil, they're the things in terms of what are we as a company doing to be future ready.
Thank you.
And what do I think people could do?
Okay, so I think I'll go around each of the panelists and then invite conversations of the three of you, if that's okay. So Grant, I wonder if you could share your thoughts about being future ready as it applies to Royal Caribbean.
Yeah.
I will talk about scared so what afterwards.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Okay.
So Royal Caribbean, you know, has anybody ever taken a cruise? Anyone in the audience? Oh, yeah, people. Great. Thank you. Yeah? Thank God. I've been in some talks and you're like, yeah, no hands whatsoever. How do you describe that world? But, you know, we're the largest cruise entity and provider in the world. We have 65 ships now, the world's largest ships. And yes, we can host anywhere from 2,000 people all the way up to 7,000 and 8,000 people on our biggest ships that are out there. And people say, that's just too big. No, it's not. We'll keep going. We keep going. Because what happens when you get on board these ships is, the first thing people say is, well, where is everybody? It's just a wonderful experience. So how do you lead that? Well, if you look at what we've done in our 55-year history, the pandemic shut us completely down. So, you know, $26 billion industry to zero revenue with all those ships and all those people sitting on it. Talk about shock and change. And that's where transformation has to happen. And so in looking at how do I facilitate transformation and make our teams future ready, I focus on the educational aspect of it. My right hand is here, Sean Lyons, who I work religiously with every day. We call each other besties. And what our job is to deliver the education, to transform how we sell, to deliver the future needs of our customers. And it's different. Before I took the master's program, I was heavy into every sales training program that I could pick up over the years. It was on consultative sales and tips and tricks to overcome objections, and how do you manipulate the conversation to go to your way, and how do you put all of the promotions out there, and it was all about the company. And when I went into the master's program, that was the furthest of the truth. It went directly in, well, how do you focus on the customer? How do you to the values and the mindsets where the customer wants to be? And it's funny because it's really just putting a mirror to your face. When you go into a consumer buying experience, what's the first thing you do when you see a salesperson? I got this. Just looking, just browsing. Don't talk to me. Don't touch me. Don't come near me. I got this. And so all those different types of experiences happen. So why would we do the same thing in our sales approach to people? Well, that's what Sean and I look heavily at. From our Consalia experience from the master's into the doctorate. Kate is here as well too. Into my doctorate was on how do you lead transformationally in sales and do all of this together so that you can differentiate your business and your function. So we focus heavily on the educational side and getting away from those old school tips and tricks that just don't work. And how do we learn the science of sales? How do you learn the psychology behind selling? And then, as you mentioned and alluded to, how do we facilitate the change management that needs to happen so that people can learn how to sell in the way people want to be sold to? And I'll give you a great case example if I can. Sales transformation at work. People will always say, well, what's the ROI on it? You have this great department in the cruise industry. You're the first ones to do it. Is there an ROI? And I give you a very small test case. In 2019, we had a department called Outbound. Call centers, right? Inbound, outbound. Our outbound division was at its infancy, and it made $4 million in the year 2019. 2020 and 2021, we had the pandemic, 0. So in 2023, we started to apply all of the educational aspects from the sales mindsets to the sales transformation process and say, how do we look at the outbound department and make it something future ready? How do we sell in the way our customers want to be sold to on the phones? And I'm happy today that we will exceed $20 million this month. So this year is a $20 million year. So anybody in revenue would love to have that kind of a drive and that kind of a transformation. But it is looking at the way you sell and how you sell. And if you're not meeting your customer where they are today, you won't be future ready at all. So,
Okay, thank you very much, Grant.
yeah.
Okay, Vlatka, I'm so interested to hear your perspectives as a practitioner as well as an academic and sort of an expert on change. And we've heard about the emergent leadership. So what are your insights?
So I'll go back to emergent leadership model because this is the heart of the management shift approach, which is known as the how of the big shift from old paradigm based on command and control to new paradigm based on people, purpose, collaboration. And that is based on years of interdisciplinary research. And I see the world through these 5 levels. So as Kathy mentioned, there are 5 levels that our individual mindset goes through, but there is also a corresponding organizational culture at every level, which is characterized by specific thinking patterns, language use, leadership style, organizational culture, organizational outcomes, and we cannot skip the levels. It is also very highly relevant to sales professionals because I map those 5 levels to sales drivers, to customer centricity, and 32 other areas. Anything you can think of, give me a challenge, I will map the 5 levels to that particular issue, problem, whether it's individual, whether it's organizational or societal, because we know from neuroscience, with our thinking, with our behavior, we are spreading the ripples, and with our mirror neuron brain cells, we pick up the moods and emotions of people around us, and then we operate at that level. So, coming to your questions, how do we get future ready? We get future ready by shifting individual leaders, employees, and entire organizational culture to level 4, occasionally level 5. I can briefly say a little bit more about the levels just to put it in the context. So level 1, lifeless mindset, apathetic culture, not much gets done. There's a lot of toxicity, fear, blame, worry. It's really not a good place to be. Level 2, reluctant mindset, stagnating culture. People do a minimum they can get away with just to get a paycheck. So they bring their body to work, their heart and mind stay at home. Level 3, controlled mindset and orderly culture. This is command and control, micromanagement. We do what we are told to do. And this is where majority of organizations are. And this is where sales is driven by numbers. So just sell to meet the spreadsheet numbers, regardless of people and what they want and what customers want, etc. So we need to go through this big shift, what I call the management shift. So we help leaders. We shift the sales mindset, we shift organizational culture from level 4. where the mindset is enthusiastic and culture is collaborative. And this is where magic happens, and I'm delighted to have Kathy now as one of our business partners, because she has and her team in SAP experienced this magic and achieved the breakthrough. So the keywords are trust, transparency, purpose, collaboration, working on something much bigger than ourselves. And this is where all the numbers go up. Sales numbers, innovation, engagement, staff retention, everything improves. We are really, really purposeful, and we want to make this world a better place. And occasionally we can reach level 5, where we have unlimited mindset and limitless culture. This is where highly innovative teams work day and night on some amazing innovations. So everything we do within Manage and Shift Solution is about helping leaders, organizations to shift to level 4 and occasionally tap into energy of level 5. And we have various tools and processes I developed over years, because as you introduced me, Phil, I'm a kind of a hybrid person, academic and management consultant and a coach and etc. And a few other hats I'm wearing as well. So a long answer to question, future ready organizations, future ready leaders are level 4, occasionally level 5 leaders and organizations.
Okay, so thank you very much. So questions for the panel. Anyone got any questions you'd like to direct at any particular person in the panel? Offer.
Paul.
So can we come over to Offer with a mic?
Here comes Eddie.
I'm Offer.
Very attractive offer, right?
Thank you. We're all talking very lofty terms, and especially in the B2B type of business, at some point we get to contracting. And that's where all the organizational red tape comes up on the customer side, and the obviously the organization, everybody tried to protect themselves and become future ready in terms of protecting revenue and protecting whatever it is that you're selling. I come from the subscription world, I guess you are as well. The question is, how do you keep that? How do you keep at that level, that rapport that you established in such a nice way, all the way up to contracting, and that's when the red tape hits the road?
Yeah, I just want to build on a word that Vlatka used, which is trust. And I think, how do you engender trust through your sales team during that sales cycle? Yeah. There are things that between two companies you'll just never get over, right? A company has that policy, you have that policy, and you end up accepting things. But I think in the main, where trust has been established right the way through that sales cycle at all levels of the sales cycle, I think my experience is you get through those type of contract discussions really quickly. Whether that's in, Kathy and I get experience of doing $100 million deals, or whether it's doing a 200 or a 300K deal, right, with a much smaller company, it's really a thing of trust. So what I've found engenders trust is having a team and execs in that company together in front of a customer, yeah, and make sure that you understand the layers. So back to your ICP work, but also the persona work of it. So when you bring persona, so to the vertical, you bring the role in a sense. When you bring the role and you understand the layers in that organization and you map those layers correctly, I think back to purpose and the purpose of the company, and you drive that in through your sales cycles, I think you build trust. That contractual position becomes much, much easier in the end, is my experience. And the ones that have been really difficult have been the hardest commercial negotiations, where right from day one, it's been price, and then you get to the contract stage and it's the exact same thing, because trust to the buyer doesn't matter. Yeah, and then the question for us is, do you want that type of customer? Do you want that type of business? But that's a question for a different day. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Siobhan Gallagher. I'm interested to know, in terms of future ready and future proofing businesses, what are each of you doing to ensure repeat customers, to ensuring that the customer journey doesn't just end at that point of the contract being signed? Because I think what this 1 year has taught us, where there is very little new business, is that the value of those customers and the customer life cycle needs to be nurtured and really grown. And for someone who's always been focused on new revenue, I'm really glad to see it, because I think it's been neglected. So interested to hear your thoughts.
Shall we ask Grant to maybe
Yeah,
answer?
from the cruise industry, it's very different. We went through 2 years of being frozen, no revenue whatsoever, for 2 years on the books, and it's quite astonishing how the cruise industry even survived. Airlines got compensation from governments around the world, hotel chains, resorts, it's the same as well too. The cruise industry didn't. We had to go billions and billions in debt just to stay afloat for ourselves. But then what we've seen now is, with the rise of cruise coming back, it's who has taken care of their customers. So it's been a massive shift in the dominance of where the customer is going to go spend their money. And knock on something, Royal Caribbean has been there. And I attribute that back to our philosophy of the customer must always come first, whether it's the end customer or our primary customer is our travel agents. And we are diligently loyal to them. And even through the pandemic, when most cruise lines shut down, you couldn't even call a cruise line to get through to them. We were there. Our entire sales force, and he's sitting right here as well too, Sean, my right hand, who I pulled from the sales force to be sales transformation with me, they were all on the phones just to be on the phone and listen to a travel agent cry. Literally. Moms, dads, brothers, sisters, throughout the pandemic, losing their business left and right. How are we going to survive? Well, you could categorize that that's not sales, but it was the relationship. It was the trust. So we kept our sales force. We scaled down, but we kept our sales force going. So back to a little bit about what both of you guys are saying, it is the trust and it is a relationship. But I will also tell you, before we went on the master's program, contracting used to be difficult. The relationships used to be difficult. But now that we have a different way of learning of how do we behave, how do we work, how do we create a winning value proposition together, our whole account management process now is not led from Royal Caribbean. It's led the other way. We actually go through to the customer first and start with a transparent blank sheet of paper. What is it about you? What's your need? What does your customers want and need? Then how do we just might happen to have the products to serve you and support you? Now in full transparency comes with that. This is our standard contract. This is what we can do within the industry. And everybody sees it. The relationship is there. The trust is there. And so the buying experience has just been phenomenal. We are literally having the most incredibly record-breaking year we've had in 54 years. So, yeah. Actually, I'll take it even further. We hit target 3 months ago. So.
Targets are too low.
Shh, don't tell my boss.
Fantastic. Yeah, brilliant.
Phil, sorry.
Siobhan, what I think I've
Sorry,
asked-
another question.
One more question. Yeah, just on the back of what you're saying there. Sorry, Brenda Henderson.
Yeah.
What if you find that the customers, like your new customers that you've just been talking about, and that building that trust and that sort of retention piece, if your product offering isn't quite fitting the bill, you know, you may be behind in your specific sector or industry, and how are you closing that gap? Because you can have the best relationship and, you know, build that trust, and there's that gap there, and how do you feel that?
Yeah, and that's a good question. Fortunately, we don't have that problem, and I'm not being
I'm
arrogant.
glad to hear that.
Anybody who knows us, Royal Caribbean is known as the innovators in the cruise industry. We build, if you can dream it, it's been built by Royal. From robots to, you know, ice skating on ships to skydiving on the back of a ship you can do now. It's just amazing what Royal does. And actually, we're known as being, where we get copied after we debut. But that said, you can't rest on your loyalties. You can't rest on complacency. So then even for the newcomer, the new account that comes through, because in the travel industry, they were wiped out as well. We have so many new travel agents around the world. High streets and retail high streets were decimated. So now we find ourselves, well, you have a choice. Do you want to be a cruise industry that trains? Back to education. Do you train your customers how to do their job? And how do you differentiate your skill set? That's what we're doing. We actually have a whole Club Royal Academy to where we're teaching brand new travel agents how to sell, how to do their job, how to be future ready to be successful with their own businesses, regardless if they sell to us or not. And at the end of the day, what I want for all of my sales teams anywhere around the world is if you deliver the best product, the best process, and the best deliverance experience for the customer, then it doesn't matter if they buy from us or not, because we might not have the product that they need at this moment, but they will remember who we are, they'll remember how we treated them, and they'll remember the experience so that they will go tell 26 other people about Royal Caribbean. And that's what's been happening throughout this year and will continue to happen as we continue to deliver more ships and train up more travel agencies. We will always be there for him so that they understand that they have a strength in the partnership. That's important for us, more above any ROI.
That's great, thank you. Sorry, Phil, can I just ask one more, and it could be to anybody. In terms of that innovation piece that you talked about, and and being responsive to a customer's needs and how quickly that innovation can actually happen. In some industries, like obviously fintechs, it happens quite fast. In sort of like where I work in like corporate banking, not so much. And I suppose do you think that the speed of innovation and responsiveness to the market is having to sort of catch up with the sort of AI technology, or do you think there's time to respond to customers' needs?
It's amazing you say that. We had a great quote, and see if I can get this right, by our former chairman and CEO, Richard Fain, who really is the father of Royal Caribbean cruises globally. He said, the speed of change will never be as slow as it is today. And we all had to sit and think for that. We're like, okay, with great words of wisdom and power, and wherever you are up there, oh, wise one, thank you. And then he said, no, seriously, just think about it. The speed of change will never be as slow as it is today. So there's always the advent of a new tool. AI is just one. We sat in a great panel discussion with many of the leaders here in this room just the other day with the ISB, having this very discussion. How do we learn about AI and what should we be doing within our own organizations? Because most organizations have just sent out a blanket ban from IT saying, don't use it. But do you think how do you think that's going to go down with salespeople? Our salespeople are like this. Did you know I could do that? It just wrote all my emails. Okay, hang on. Was it a good email? What was it? But embracing that change process, that part of it, and just being honest and transparent enough to say, we know what we know what we don't know, but let's go on the journey together as a unified team with our customers along with us. So we're starting the discussions with AI. What is acceptable use? What is threats? What is ethics? How should we allow our people to use it because you can't stop them? What will be used on our systems? And then we already use, the funny thing is I learned at the ISP just the other day, so many different things about, do you realize you're using elements of AI for years? Chatbot, text, WeChats, these different things that are going through. So it's not that we're just magically started today. We've been doing this for, I think AI, they said 70 years. With the technology in some aspects of it, but it's how do we embrace that change and how do we join it together?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know, Vlatka, Paul, do you want to add?
I think to give, probably weave both of your questions. So I think, Siobhan, the first question, I think you have to think about separating the sales effort from the customer experience effort, because my experience is you try and get the same people to do them. All that happens is you actually eat into your selling time. So you create a consequence you don't want. So there's this emerging concept of customer success and having people that really live, breathe, eat and sleep customer success in the same way you have people who live, breathe and eat your customer relationships and winning. So I think if you could reimagine the resource that you have and where could you build that customer success effort, I think that the experience from customers is that they really appreciate that, because you need the outside in view of what it is you're going to market with as well as the inside out. And companies that I've seen that really struggle, you find that they don't have sales, product and marketing joined up. So joining them up, I think, is key. And then the other piece is deciding whether you want to try and do and put and give 100% of everything that your customer needs. That's a really difficult thing to do, yeah. And in the world that we live in, more often than not, 70% to 80% will win. You know, best of breed versus suite, and typically over time, suite always wins, because you can either choose to put my money into integration, which is what you need to do with best of breed, or do I put my money into suite where the integration's been done, and that's just a decision that the company, would need to take. But a lot of it's deciding actually what you want to. In my own company, we've got about 7 or 8 products that we're now going to bin. We will no longer put resource, time and effort into them. And I think, as John said earlier, you do rate increases and there's a percentage of the market that don't like that. Well, we're going to have a percentage of our customer base that are a bit to hate us. But we're doing it for the right long-term reasons for our company and also for them. So some of it's also deciding what won't you do anymore. What part of that market won't you win because it's just too expensive or too challenging.
Our story is that for a while we have been growing organically. I've been doing a lot of keynote talks, and then people would meet me in person or through word of mouth, personal recommendations. The clients would just come to us. And when people ask me, how do you get your clients? My answer is through inspiration or desperation. So there are CEOs that are desperate, knowing that unless they shift and do something radically different, they will not survive as a company. And when I interviewed 58 CEOs for my book, Human Capital, and I asked them what would have happened if you did not go through this big shift from level 3 to level 4, they said we wouldn't have survived, we wouldn't be around anymore. So that's desperation. And then there are CEOs who are inspirational, they get the level 4, they're there almost, but they need our help to really anchor firmly everybody else, to bring them, elevate them to level 4. And another important point is know your unique selling points. What is unique? I have a part-time job as a professor at Ashridge, Hull International Business School, and their assessment team have done a thorough market research because they were thinking about offering the management shift assessments. And 6 months later, they said we couldn't find anything comparable, so we will offer it to our clients. So find something that's very unique. And the final point, for me, it's really personalized service. So if you look at our website, there are lots of programs, tools. Sometimes I have a problem, I can't stop the innovation in idea and the creativity. But at the end of the day, for 80-90% of clients, I create completely bespoke programs. So say, okay, this is like Lego blocks. Which blocks do you want? Which type of assessments? How many people will go through the program? Do we want to include everybody else? Etc., etc. So it's very, very personalized. And one point I also want to mention is purpose. Personally, I'm hugely driven by purpose. I feel I'm on earth here to help as many leaders and organizations globally to humanize their work, to make their workplaces more fit for purpose, healthier, happier workplaces, more conscious, doing good, doing well. I strongly feel that's my mission. And when I work with clients, I really want to learn and feel their own purpose. Why did they exist? And then I try to, and I work on a program to design a program that will help them to reach their purpose as well.
That's all we have time for, I'm afraid. Yeah, but can we give the panelists a round of applause?